My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my list of the 5 worst TV shows that came out in 2021. This is just a few shows that I really hated. Let's just get into it. Now, in 5th spot, I didn't quite know which one I was going to pick. There were 2 contenders, Servant Season 2 and Mr. Coleman Season 1. And yes, Mr. Coleman Season 1 is incredibly boring and bland, but Servant Season 2 also ruined a really good season of television that came out before it. So in 5th place, I'm going to go with Servant Season 2. What an absolute mess of a season. Like, absolute mess. Complete disaster. There was one really great episode where you could see the potential and where they could be going with this season. But then they just don't go in any interesting direction. They make so many questionable decisions from beginning to end of the season. The more we find out about what's going on, the dumber this show gets. And by the end of this season, this overlong, stupid, boring season of television, we're now exactly where we were 2 seasons ago. Just an absolutely terrible season of television. Despised it. In 4th place is Ted Lasso Season 2. Now, I loved the first season of Ted Lasso. I thought it was hilarious, it was charming, heartfelt, smart. Everything this season isn't. This season isn't funny whatsoever. And it doesn't even feel like the same show. Instead, it feels like this soap opera. It feels like Sex and the City, but for people who play soccer. It's just filled with nonsensical melodrama that I couldn't care less about. The character of Ted Lasso is absolutely ruined here. It focuses way too much on these bland and boring supporting characters that I couldn't care less about. There's a relationship between Rebecca and Sam that I didn't buy whatsoever. There's no progression with the actual soccer team playing soccer. Like, they don't get better by the end of this season. So it just feels like that entire plot is just forgotten about and no one cares about it. This was just a terrible, awful season of television, and I don't think I'll be watching season 3, which is a huge shame because I really did love the first season. And then in 3rd place, we've got Loki Season 1. Yeah, I know lots of people love this show. I thought it was a complete disaster. I hated it. What's even the plot? I said this in my review, but what's even the plot? If you could describe this show in 2 to 3 sentences, it's Loki's adventures through jumping around in time while he falls in love with himself, I guess? Because there's not really a cohesive storyline. There's not even an episodic approach to it either. Like, what's his adventure this week? It's just completely absent of any plot whatsoever. The character development of Loki is just absolutely atrocious. He watches the MCU marathon and he starts feeling bad about how he acted in certain movies. And that's as much character growth as he gets. The entire plot of him falling in love with female Loki was just weird. Like, who thought that was a good idea? And by the end of this season, all it felt like was just one big setup for the multiverse storylines. I hated it. I'm just done with the MCU now. Just terrible, terrible television. The second worst season of television of 2021 would be Schmigadoon Season 1. Now, I watched this show because I like the premise. You know, of these 2 modern people going into a musical town. I like that idea. I think there was lots of great potential in it. But this show just did not deliver on it in any way. It's not even remotely funny. It's not romantic whatsoever. The music is all awful. Like, every single song is awful. I didn't care remotely about these characters. I found them both to be completely unlikable. Cecily Strong just isn't a good actress whatsoever. Keegan-Michael Key, I miss the days when he was acting with Jordan Peele because that's when he was at his best. You just don't really buy him in these type of roles. There was just nothing I liked about this show. Just nothing. I really hated it. It was only 3 hours long, but boy, was this a tough show to get through. It really was. But the worst TV show of 2021 is Them, Season 1. Now, the premise of a black family moving into a white neighborhood in the 50s is a good idea. It could have made a very uncomfortable, very unpleasant watch that could have been really effective. But this is not that show. It's a one-note show that just feels way too overlong. By the time the first episode ended, I'm just like, oh man, is this all the show's going to be? And yes, It was excessive, it was way too much, but it was also incredibly boring. I had zero investment in anything that was going on. I didn't like any of the characters. The only reason we're supposed to root for the main characters is because they're the victims, but they don't really have any distinct characters themselves. They also make some incredibly stupid decisions throughout, and all these stories going on involving the supporting characters and the villains were just awfully written. The entire premise of this show is white people bad and are evil, and I'm just tired of shows like that. I really am. It's not remotely scary. It's just awful. I just hated the show. It was excessively boring. It lacks any sort of personality. It's not remotely scary. It's trying way too hard and it fails every step of the way. This was just a complete garbage show. Absolutely atrocious. One of the worst shows I've ever seen in my life. Never watch it. Like, it's pure fucking garbage. Just don't watch it. But what are some of the worst TV shows you've seen of 2021? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin out.